Hey guys, what's going on? Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Nintendo Switch, and we're going to discuss a little bit about the article that came out last week that was highlighted by the idea that the Nintendo Switch was not going to be as powerful as the PS4. So basically this article just kind of emphasized the fact that, or made it seem extremely important that the Nintendo Switch was expected to have a maximum of around a teraflop of bandwidth for its system or for its GPU, and that this was so much lower than the base model PS4, which is currently running at 1.8. So we want to talk a little bit about that today and how these specs actually compare to the current gen systems, not the 4K or upscaling consoles that are arriving between now and next Christmas. So, like I said, the big emphasis was that this article stated that the Nintendo Switch was going to have about a teraflop of bandwidth for the GPU, and how now how this actually compares to the Xbox One and the PS4 is very interesting. It's something that we should all take note of. The Xbox One has a bandwidth of 1.3 teraflops, and the PS4 has a bandwidth of 1.8. Okay, so just comparison between those two systems. I own all the systems. I don't have a stake in this game at all, and I do plan on getting a Switch as well. I plan on getting a Scorpio should it prove to be valuable. I actually held off on getting a PS4 this Black Friday. Excuse me, due to the fact that there just seems to be a lot of bugs to iron out. There seems to be some degrading of current PS4 titles with the updates, and it just doesn't seem very mature yet. So I'm holding off on getting a PS4 and instead upgrading my current PS4. I'm holding off on getting a PS4 Pro, and I actually upgraded my PS4 to accept 4 terabyte to 6 terabyte hard drives using desktop hard drives. I'm gonna get into that the process at some other point, but getting back to the PS4, as far as 1.8 teraflops, Xbox One at 1.3 teraflops. Okay, so when we compare those two systems visually, I know that in this generation there's a big deal being made out of resolution and pixels and frame rate. One may drop, one frame where the other system doesn't, and these different things, and adaptive anti-aliasing and things like that. And to be honest with you, unless you see these games side by side or doing these hardcore comparison videos where you notice there's one less blade of grass in one video and not the other, you're not going to notice a difference. I tend to base my purchases off of which system has the cheaper games. I tend to buy more games on PS4 simply because the sales on the PlayStation Network are usually a lot better. They tend to give you more money off for digital copies than the Xbox One, Xbox Live Store. Excuse me. So that's how I base my game purchases off. But in fact, this holiday, there was a sale for Battlefield 1 on the Xbox One, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks after release, for $35 for the Xbox One. I picked it up. There was a similar sale on the PlayStation Network, but it wasn't as cheap, so I didn't get it. Like I said, the games look damn near identical, so there was no point in fussing over, like I said, one blade of grass is shinier or less pixelated than the other, because you really can't tell at all, despite what the media has been pushing on us for the last 3 years. So with that in mind, 1.8 teraflops in the PS4 and 1.3 in the Xbox One, and it looks almost pretty much exactly the same. I can't tell the difference. With the naked eye, you can't. Like I said, they do these comparison videos, and they really push hard that it looks so different, and it really doesn't. So that's one thing I do want to keep in mind when it comes to how I choose games. So compared to that difference, which is 0.5 teraflop difference, and how the games look almost exactly the same or exactly the same by the naked eye, and you have the Nintendo Switch and the Xbox One, which only has a difference of zero point 0.3. Okay, so if it's in the same ballpark, I mean, literally, it's a lot closer than the Xbox One is to the PS4. Games should look roughly the same if you're just comparing teraflops, which this article is doing. Okay, but my reason for making this particular podcast or video, whatever this is going to end up being, is that that's not the only factor that matters. Okay, so typically with a video game system, it takes about 3 years from design to the launch of the actual system. So the GPUs that were the base of what's in the Xbox One and the PS4 were actually based on GPUs that were released in about 2010, and the systems were released fall of 2013. In comparison, the same 3-year window, the Switch was actually is based off supposedly a GPU that was released in 2014. Same GPUs like the 970 GTX 970, GTX 980. I know the Tegra processors came around the same year. So those are the base models, or the basis for what's going to be in the Nintendo Switch. If it's not Pascal, okay, which is what some people are hoping for. Now, to my knowledge, Pascal only came out to be used in cars and things like that. That's the only implementation that's actually out in the market right now. So, in comparing that, you look at the fact that you have almost no difference, obviously, in teraflops, and you have a much more recent GPU architecture than is in the PS4 and the Xbox One. Now, I'm pretty sure that regardless of how many teraflops is in each system, if you have a newer GPU technology that is more efficient, that is more powerful, it doesn't require, it's not required to have those large numbers in order to be as powerful. I mean, we have mobile phones now that far outclass the Xbox 360 and the PS4. You know, and that's the difference that 2 or 3 years will make. When it comes to technology. Let alone you have a 4-year difference between a GPU basis for the Xbox One and the PS4 and the Nintendo Switch. So my last point that I do want to kind of bring up in this topic is that the fact that obviously they say they have 2 points. Dark Souls 3 is rumored to be running well on the Nintendo Switch. Now we all know that Dark Souls 3 had some stuttering and frame rate issues on the PS4 and the Xbox One. I actually own the PS4 version, and there's some frame rate drops, there's some stuttering issues, and I still enjoy the game, and I think it runs fairly well. But even those systems had a hard time getting that game to work without any frame rate issues. Now the PC version that I own runs at 60 frames per second, but it has its own issues to deal with. But the fact that they got this game that was pretty much struggling to run on the current gen systems running well on Nintendo Switch is a good sign. Like I said, if you're owner of Dark Souls 3, you understand there are some frame rate issues every now and then, especially when the bigger enemies are on screen. And the fact they got this entire game running on a Nintendo Switch and they're satisfied with the result, that's a pretty good sign that it's going to be able to keep up with the current gen systems and current gen multi-platform games that do come out. So now my actual last point that I wanted to make is that during this time frame that we're looking at of 2010 GPUs that were the basis for the Xbox One and PS4, and the possibly 2014 basis GPU for the Nintendo Switch, are made by two different companies. Now, if you're a PC gamer, PC builder, it's pretty common knowledge that the NVIDIA graphics cards tend to run faster, more efficient, less power hungry than the AMD graphics cards that are on the market as well. My assumption would be that AMD won these contracts for these current gen consoles due to the fact they were asking for a much lower price from Nintendo, and in order to get this contract, than NVIDIA was. And in fact, NVIDIA stated in an article that I remember reading that these GPUs that were in these current systems were going to underperform. And then what within the first couple of months of the new systems being released, they were already talking about how they weren't powerful enough and it shouldn't have been launched that way. So now we have an NVIDIA GPU for the first time since the PS3. It's something to be excited about. And, so we have an opportunity to see NVIDIA once again after all this time, where we've been seeing a full, current generation of AMD console-based, based GPUs in these consoles that we own, to finally see NVIDIA kind of strut its stuff in not only a hybrid portable system, but a hybrid portable system that's possibly able to compete with the Xbox One and PS4. Like I said, if it's going to be as simple as comparing teraflops and numbers, which is silly, because obviously there's much more, which we discussed, that goes into determining how powerful graphics card comparisons are going to be to look at. So we have a lot to be excited about. Obviously, different GPU manufacturers, the fact that it's so close to the Xbox One in terms of teraflops in general, and the fact that it's a 4-year difference in GPU technology. We have a lot to be excited about. So, guys, keep that in mind. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you later.